Hey everyone. Hey, glad to see y'all. This is my name is Rick Betancourt, and I'm the president of the Florida Writers Association. And we're happy today to have one of our amazing authors with us. We have Gerri Almand today, and Gerri is actually in her RV. We're just chatting. She's in her RV in Eugene, Oregon. So quite a ways from the sunny Florida coast. She says it's about 50 degrees right now. So, but we're gonna have a little chat with Gerri about her books and writing and take it from there. Excellent. Well, welcome, Gerri.
Well, thank you so much. And I apologize for my lack of a beautiful background and flowers and a blue wall. It is very hard to get lighting adjusted in an RV. And that is
Yes.
where I am. And this is my home now because I have become a true minimalist.
Wow. So you're a full-time
Uh,
RV.
We were
That's,
pushed into it by the pandemic, actually.
yeah.
Um, we were in South Texas when this pandemic erupted and we got stranded and travel became almost impossible.
Yeah.
We pretty much decided to go full time anyway, but we ended up selling the house over the phone. And we have been full time in the RV for 16 months now.
Wow. How big
So
of an RV is it?
how big? It's a
Yeah.
actually kind of a medium sized one. It's 33 feet long.
Okay.
And sometimes the people in these big 42, 45-foot rigs will look and they say, "You live full time in that tiny thing?" We still have empty basements. I have truly learned to be happy with very few possessions. This
That's awesome.
lifestyle suits me.
Yeah. Now, is that I love all these. So I watch all these RV shows all the time, or used to anyway. Is that a class A or a class C, or what's the
Uh,
class size?
we we RV'd for the first 4 years in a 26-foot Class C.
Okay.
And when we kind of decided to go full time, we decided to go a little bigger. We wanted more storage. So we went
Yeah.
with a 33-foot Class A.
Okay.
And, we still have a couple of empty basements.
Yeah, like you were saying. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
It,
awesome. That's awesome.
but it
So
works.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your writing, because your writing is about RVing. So this is
Yes.
just
Yes.
how apropos here that we're you're in your RV, and you
Uh-huh.
have two books that we have on the Expo: The Reluctant
Uh-huh.
RV Wife and Home is Where the RV Is. And the covers on these are great. They're the back of an RV, on both of them. I love I love that sort of branding, because you have
And
you cover the actually, just there you are. I was looking at
okay.
the other page and I lost you. Um, I love that branding with the books, because you can tell that it's sort of a series, or that
Yeah.
they're connected, and it's an excellent way to get people into your series. So
That was
what?
actually our RV. I took the photograph with my cell phone. The cover designer uh, changed the tag number, pasted the little signs in the rear mirror, and superimposed our little RV out on the open road.
Oh, that's
He
great.
also removed, we tow a car, he removed the Blue Ox tow system from the RV too, but that was our RV.
Cool. That's awesome. Awesome. So how did you start on your whole writing journey in the first place?
I dreamed since childhood of being a writer, and I became a social worker instead. I spent 40 years in the social work field, and I was indeed a writer, but it was nonfiction. I wrote social developmental history, psychosocial evaluations, investigative reports for the circuit court. I mean, I wrote, but it wasn't creative writing. And then when
Gotcha.
I retired, I I joined some writing groups and I started writing, but I really had not found my voice. And it wasn't until 2015 when my sweet talking husband talked me into getting this RV and traveling, which I never wanted to do because I was an avid gardener. I had 200 orchids growing on the lanai. You do not go
Oh,
off in an RV and leave 200 orchids. I'm sorry. So somehow this RV gave me a topic. And that first book was really like an adult temper tantrum, protesting all the changes that were coming about in my life, not only retirement, but the getting old, the living with a partner who wanted something different than I did, and having to compromise and adjust and grow and change. So, and I worked through a lot of angst. I started writing to express my angst, and I wrote my way through it.
Yeah. So would you say your writing is more memoir, or because we have you labeled under nonfiction, but would you say it's more of a memoir type of thing, or how would you
The
describe it?
I've taken some literary licenses and with these books, but they're basically true stories. There's
Okay.
some hyperbole. I've got a lot of quotes that, and I'll qualify that they're coming from my memory, so they may not have been 100% of the way it happened. That might be accurate. There are a couple of places my husband disagrees with me. I thought about having him sign a disclaimer before I let it go to print, but his interpretation was a little different than mine. But, basically they are true stories. They're not a memoir in the typical sense that you think of a memoir, but it
Gotcha.
is memoir. But I like to
Nice.
think it's more creative nonfiction.
Yeah. Cool. So it was interesting. You mentioned you had a social worker background, and the writing that you did. You had to write as part of your job. How do
Yeah.
you or has that did that impact the way you write now? Like, what did you learn from that experience that helped you, or did you learn anything from that experience that sort of helped you with the writing process in a more creative way?
Well, I think the biggest difference, and the thing that the biggest hurdle I had to climb, was learning when you're writing a professional report or an evaluation, you are totally, everything is objective, third person, you are removed, and you have to be so careful never to let yourself
Yeah.
show in any way in that report. I think what I've learned is that when you're writing true stories, you have to dig deep, 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 and you have to get that emotion out, because it's the emotion that's going to connect with the reader. You
True.
have to connect with them on a level much deeper than the words, the actual content. You have to connect with your audience, be it as a speaker or as a writer, but you have to hit some emotional chords.
Yeah,
So that was
that's a great point, because you in the workspace, you're not going to get emotional regardless of the type of writing. I do a lot of technical writing and business writing, and
uh-huh.
you're correct. You have to sort of devoid your emotions from that experience.
Yeah.
And then when you're writing fiction or creative nonfiction, you want that emotion. So that's a
Yes,
great way of
yes.
that's a great way of stating that. So what's your writing process like when you start a new book? How do you plan it, or do you plan it, or how do you go about getting the words on the page?
With the first book, The Reluctant RV Wife, I had absolutely no idea where that book was going to go, or
Uh-huh.
how it was going to end. And I was probably 40,000 words into that manuscript when I realized, here's my story arc. Here's the beginning. I'm in the middle now. I'm not sure how this is going to, but I've got an arc here. I've got
Yeah.
change. I've got movement. I'm growing. Everything's changing in this book. So there's the action. So that one kind of fell into place. So the second one, there's a more subtle story arc of the internal letting go, accepting, resolution. The
Mm-hmm.
third one, though, the one that's going to be coming out in just a couple of weeks, is called Running from COVID in Our RV Cocoon. And it starts last February when we left Tampa, Florida, with what was going to be a 2-month-long road trip. We ended up
Uh-huh.
getting stranded in South Texas. We couldn't have come home if we wanted to. We ended up selling the house over the phone, and
Oh
we have
my
been full-time
gosh.
in the RV now for about 16 months. and it has
Wow.
been wonderful. And so this one, it's like I still have my mother's ashes sitting on the top shelf of a closet in our house in Tampa, Florida. And it is this whole thought of letting all of these things go. But that is primarily the story arc of this one. How glorious that how the juxtaposition, the paradox of having this pandemic take away so many of our personal freedoms, while at the same time finding and recognizing a freedom like I've never known in my life.
Wow.
This painful, poignant restriction, but the release of this incredible sense of being untethered and
Yeah.
unfettered. You know, it's fun.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That sounds like a running from COVID. I love it. It's a
Yes.
great idea.
And
Um,
this RV cocoon idea, this is our sanctuary. And as
yeah.
we meet more and more RVers, we have felt so blessed and fortunate to be in this RV because we have been so safe. We have been able to social distance. In RV parks, you can have a happy hour in the afternoon, bringing your lawn chairs and sitting 8 feet away from other people. You know,
Yeah.
we haven't been as socially isolated as we would have been had we been sheltered
Yeah.
in place at home in a house.
Good point. Very good point. Very good point. Gerri, what do you find to be the most exciting part about being an author?
There have been some real surprising parts
Okay.
about being an author. The most exciting is like this sense of accomplishment, something that I had wanted to do. I'm 73 years old. I'm an old woman. I had always wanted to be a writer, and suddenly I can chalk it off my list. I mean, you turn out one book, well, maybe that's a fluke. You turn out a second, well, you know, you're on a roll. But you turn out a third. I mean, it's like, hey,
I'm
this
a
is
writer.
super. I did it. So it's this sense of accomplishment that I feel. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
the
awesome.
surprising things is how much work it is, you know, and how
Mhm.
much, you know, the fun part is that first draft. The fun part is like just pouring your heart out and anything.
Yeah,
But I never dreamed that it would take, you know, 6, 8, 10 revisions. I just never dreamed that writing was so much work. And the
yeah,
people who, you know, you run into people at a cocktail party, oh, I'm going to write a book one day. And you kind of look at them like, you have no idea what you're saying. It would be like saying, oh, well, I'm going to be a brain surgeon one day. I mean, it's like, it's hard work. A
yeah,
lot.
yeah,
It's very hard.
yeah. The hard part is in the editing. Often call myself an editor more than I am a writer because I think I
Yes,
spend more time going back and perfecting it than I
yes.
do. And you know, and then you get into that balance. It's like, when do I just say it's done? And it's like it's never going to be perfect. It's like,
I know. I mean, I look at my first book now, The Reluctant RV Wife, and if I could take it back, I could make it so much better now than what
I
it
know.
was when it came out.
Yeah,
Um,
I hear you. Yeah, you just got to
yes,
kind of let it go
yes,
and let
yes.
it be what it is. So with that, so what's the most challenging part about being an author?
Most challenging. You know, it's not maintaining the discipline. I'm pretty OCD. I'm a driven woman. You know, when I get an
Uh,
idea on my mind, maybe the hardest thing is trying to maintain a balance. I mean,
like
there
a
have been
work-life
times my
balance?
husband's not pleased when I, you know, hunker down at that computer and want to stay there for 8 hours a day. You know, that's not a healthy
Yeah.
lifestyle right there. But trying to maintain the balance, you know, writer's block, I don't understand. Um, but I think the balance, trying to keep it in perspective and to realize that just because this is important to me right now does not mean this is the most important thing in my life to
True.
keep my priorities straight.
Yep. Yep. So what's your writing day like? Are you a morning writer, or you said 8 hours? So is it, or sometimes is it like do you set aside a set schedule that you try to write, or what's that
You know,
process?
8 hours was probably an exaggeration. That would be including the editing, the research, you know, and
Got it.
my books do require a certain amount of research because I talk about places and events and I want to make sure the books are accurate in terms of those kinds of details.
Hmm.
I'm a a writer who needs silence, who needs quietness. I am not one who's going to have background noise or music coming in. The first book, Wealth and RV Wife, we were on a 4-month-long trip to Alaska. I would get up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and I would write several hours before my late sleeping husband would rise at around 8 or 8:30 or whenever. So I get up early in the mornings, and that's when I write, when it's quiet and still. And the RV is a perfect, because there aren't the distractions. If I keep the shades closed when it gets daylight, I don't even see people out walking their dogs. It's just like I'm in my little cocoon here.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm a morning writer. In fact, I got up this morning at 5 o'clock on a Sunday and been writing for like 4 hours, and I even do that during the week. During the weekday before work, I'll write for a few hours, or try to anyway, as much as possible. But everybody, you got to sort of honor whatever that process is for yourself. Gerri, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about writing or thinking about getting into writing? What advice would you give to a newbie?
Read a lot of books, read all the books you can possibly read on the craft, because it's a craft, and there's a learning curve. You need to learn the basic rules, and you need to practice. The best thing I ever did was to join critique groups. You cannot write in a vacuum. You've got to have feedback from other writers, and try to surround yourself with writers who are better than you are, because you're not going to learn from people who are at your level or who are not quite as skilled as you are. You're going to learn from people who are much, much better. I have learned so much from working with editors, seeing what they do, what they correct. And each time I've had an editor, I think the next time I've done a better job. So I've invested, certainly some time, energy, and money into learning how to write.
Yeah,
and
that's good. That's a good point.
I still think of myself as a novice, but the best advice I could give is study the craft and surround yourself with writers who will give you honest feedback on your writing, and writers who are better than you are.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, because sometimes you want people to like what you're writing, but that feedback is so crucial. It's like, that's really, maybe if you did this, it'd be a little bit better. To really welcome, and I've gotten some great feedback from critique groups as well, and just being part of Florida Writers, you get the feedback from other members as well.
Yes. My FWA critique group is so important to me. We're still meeting on Zoom, and I'm just so happy. Nice. I have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to meet with this group on Zoom, since I'm on the other side of the country, but I could not do without that critique group.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Awesome, Gerri. Well, we've only got another minute or so. So I know you've got the third book coming out. And when is that book coming out? What's your plans to release that?
Probably within the next week or so. We've done the final proofing is done, and we're just waiting for that book matter that goes on the back cover to get its final little blessing. We've got the cover design. It's going to be released very, very soon.
Nice. So what's next on the horizon for Gerri after that book?
Running from COVID in our RV cocoon ended with a cliffhanger, because I ended the book in December. We were in Desert Hot Springs, California. The hospitals were filled. The virus was rampant. They were saying, if you get sick, don't even think about coming to the hospital, because there are no beds. There are no facilities to treat you. It just ended with this terrifying cliffhanger. I still don't know what's going to happen with this pandemic. It is still kind of, so I'm not really sure what's going to come next. Will I continue this or not? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to stay tuned to your, do you have a website or some place that people can follow you?
Yes, I do. GerriAlmand.com.
GerriAlmand.com. All right, folks. So
Yes.
check out GerriAlmand.com, and also be sure to check out her booth, her virtual booth in the Florida Writers Expo. And we will be. I think we have a question. Does anyone know when the Penny Sansevieri thing starts? I don't know when that webinar starts, but we just had a question from Ian on when the Penny Sansevieri webinar starts. We'll have to get that to you, Ian. I'm not sure. But anyway, Gerri, it's been great chatting with you this afternoon or this morning on your coast. Appreciate
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah,
It's
this
been
is fun. This is fun. So we'll look forward to hearing more about your books.
Okay, thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.